Would you believe, mind's eye visual guitar people, that I just got an hour into recording this lesson and I screwed it up so bad that I had to stop and re-record, and now I've wasted an hour of time. All right, so you don't know that out there, so here we are on a lesson that I gotta tell you first right off before anything here. I love to give you bang for the bucks, play a solo better, understand a song better, become a better improviser lesson. Bang for the buck on that. This one does not have that. However, what I'm going to show you is highly interesting and does have some power to it. It's just not for the cool stuff that an electric guitar guy likes as far as learning. You're probably here to learn some cool things. So if you want to, if you're going to take off from that, I guess you do. But what you might want to know what this is about first. What if, just getting directly to the point, what if you might be able to kind of know, okay, if I go here, I know a basic code that tells me if I go here, I'm sharing 5 notes with my original key. If I go here, I'm sharing 4 notes with my original key. So that means I have 3 black keys. Okay, pretty easy. So I know that I'm going to have a pretty, reasonable mix of, what's the pull? With this, if we share a lot of notes, the chords are very easy to borrow without really noticing that you've borrowed from a whole nother key, but you add a little depth to your music. This is how to add depth and interest to your music by, as it says above, modulating or borrowing chords, like changing keys completely, or just borrowing a chord from another key and inserting it into your key as you stay in a general tonality of some kind. This will all work for that. But you don't know, with this basic information that I shared before, you won't know the details, like what black keys. And so what if I wanted to go to my keyboard? What if I'm working with my DAW, which is a lot of people what guitarists are doing today, and people want to make music, they want to compose. Not everything is about, learning how to, play a random solo over some music. You might want to make your own music and make it interesting. You might notice that you can learn a bunch of diatonic progressions, but, kind of turns into every song from Neil Young to ABBA. I don't know. Even those people were made it to where they are by borrowing chords and stuff like that, and you don't know how to do that, but today you can see some of the method behind the madness and where all this stuff comes from, and how much you can know about today. After today's lesson, what about keys that uplift and key changes that fall? You can know the change, but which one of these? Here's a question. On this side of C, I can find a key that shares 4 notes. 2, 5, 4. Okay? So here I go root 2, 5, 4. Key of A is going to share 4 notes with C, and the key of E flat is going to share 4 notes with C, if I wanted to do that. And which one of those, I lost my train of thought there if you couldn't tell. Which one of those is an uplift, and which one of those is like a downgrade from the original key? Which one of those borrowed chords is going to sound like maybe would be better suited? Now this is going to be, music is always subjective, but as a general, they have this rule for the circle of fifths that you could see right, from the basically right side of the circle of fifths. Tri-throat to the left side. Excuse me. Left side drops down, and the right side lifts up. But you're sitting at your guitar, you're at your digital audio workstation, and you don't have the circle of fifths to look at. Should be hanging on your wall probably, but you don't have it to look at, and you just want to know this off the top of your head with your guitar, maybe a keyboard sitting in front of you. It's pretty easy to know. So, here's what we got. First of all, as far as navigating this on the fretboard, well, let me tell you something a little bit. When I first learned this, I only did the white keys, and that was an important first idea. It can tell you how many, how closely related the keys are. But how about how distant they are? And it can tell you by analyzing the black keys. And the black keys form a pattern that's like an inverse of this original pattern. So like this was easy to remember for me is a 2, and right after surrounding the root you got your 2s, and that makes sense. You move a scale a half a step, it's almost going to sound like a mistake. So that's why it's only sharing 2 notes as well. Kind of makes sense there. But it is doable. And anyways, though, you got that. So then you count backwards from 5. So you got 2, 5, 4, 3. Then you got a Mazda 626, a stupid old model of Mazda that they made in the 90s. You probably don't remember and wouldn't care. It's just an old forgotten car. But there you have it, because the 151 I also remember with a car. But anyways, so then you're going in the complete exact opposite direction. So now it's 3, 4, 5, 2, and we're back to the root an octave higher than we started. All right, so with the black keys, it's the inverse, and it's just a lot of neat geometry to notice here. Look at every time you see a 2, just think 5. And you got this square here where, where for the white keys, it shares 2, then it shares 5. For the black keys, it shares 5, then it shares 2. The 5 corresponds with 2. 5 white keys, 2 black keys. 2 white keys, 5 black keys. 4 white keys, 3 black keys. 3 white keys, 4 black keys. 3, 4, 4, 3. Then you got 1, 6, another 2, 5, the 1, 6, and then back to that inverse of the first 2 squares with the 2, 5, and the 3, 4. So it's just like, look and study this stuff and look for these patterns. It's pretty wild. They're everywhere here, and that's the tritone right there. That's why there's 3 2s, but everything else is just 2. There's 2 5s, 2 4s, 2 3s, 2 6s, and 2 2s. And this also shows you that there's no key that's so distant it doesn't share any notes with the original key. It's not very likely. So the minimum is 2. The farthest you can go is 2. But these 2 are going to be could operate potentially as brighter and lower. Your tritone is kind of ambiguous, and that's why it's the tritone, and it's always in trouble until it's trying to build tension and related to 5 chords and jazz and all that stuff. But the tritone's always it's always its thing, and we're going to see its geometry. Remember that, because it'll come up in a second. So that's what you want to know between this white keys and black keys. And you can remember this in a row as, starting. I could have put that as a root there too. You could just say root. Make it a little more congruent there. So your root, you're starting at your root. If you change to this note, it's going to be 5 black keys, 2 black keys, 3 black keys. And this can kind of clue you into is like, it can tell you like, yeah, it doesn't share. Both of these give you information about, the strength of the change. It only shares 2 notes with the original key, and it shares a complete 5 black keys. So it's going to be a real strong change, as is the tritone, but that's going to be your most rich. And it's harder to tell with the tritone if the notes that you've changed have risen or fallen. I'll explain that coming up. But because this is it just kind of works as an ambiguous one and doesn't really, to me, I don't really classify it as a up or down. It's just the most jarring, obvious change you can make. Anyway, so if you want to know this as a cluster on your fretboard, there's this. Okay, I got to go through this as quick as possible because this could drag on for hours, and I've explained it in other lessons. Look for, if you want to search I'm sorry I'm not putting links in my description, but if you want to search, you're smart enough to look at this lesson, you're probably a search and research type of person, just look at my, for the composer's code, secret composer's code, that should be in the title of the lesson that fully describes this. But there's this pattern here. This pattern of lines helps me remember because it just looks like a jumble of things, but it's actually very directional. Here we have the intervals. So we have the 4th, the root, and the 5th together in a line here. That, that's in there. Those are both the notes that share both the intervals, both the notes that share the 6 white keys. So there's a relationship there, and it just so happens 1, 4, and 5. Your 1, 4, 5. Your blues. So you can consider this your blues road. This is your tritone row, because it's the only thing that keeps repeating the same two notes over and over. If you go in this direction, you go root, tritone, root, tritone, root, tritone. And on down your fretboard. And then you got this little root here and here. These are memorable because they're like a palindrome. If you flip this thing around clockwise or counterclockwise, they don't change. That's kind of neat. And they may just make a little pathway here, like you can call it the NXU alien code. NXNU. What does that mean? If you're following the composer's code here, if you follow this little trail, you can see that it's, to share two notes. This is my, just to use the E here. This is my root. This is going to be 2 notes, 3 notes. I choose this key. I want to go to this key. It's 4 notes. I want to make this my new key. It's 5 notes. Go back up to root. 6, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's that. We're going to make this the U at the end. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you could play the whole 12-tone row. That whole composer's challenge where they make a 12-tone row of melody using the same 12. Well, you could use that little brick right there, and it'll give you everything that they're trying to do. But it'd be the same thing as just using 12 notes together on a piano anyway. So okay, and you'd probably want to be like using them all over your fretboard, so it might not be even useful for that. But anyways, you could just kind of see, if you wanted to know, you wanted to have it under your fingertips really easy. If I'm, making a song and it's in the key of E and I want to do something different, I might want to say, all right, I want to pull from something I want to just completely move keys for this next part, for the bridge, for the chorus, whatever. And I want it to be like kind of different, but not totally like jarringly different. So I'm going to go like the middle of the road, I'm going to go for a 4, maybe a 3, but probably a 4. And so that's going to be here. I'm going to use, if I'm on E, that's going to be the key of G. Or if I'm there, I could go down to the key of also, what do we have there? We have a D flat, C sharp, D flat. Those would all grant me 4 notes. So that's cool. But, you can know all of that with that simple coding system there, but you don't know, you'd like a slick way to know what are the black keys that this new key is going to use. If it only uses 4 white keys, it's got to use 3 black keys, right? So, and does this key change lift or fall? We'd like to know that too. Now, that's not really that. I'm going to show you a slick way on the fretboard, or in your memorization you can do that, but actually, I could probably do it easier because now I know, because I just learned this the other day, I just saw this the other day, that the circle of fifths, if you draw a line straight up and down, dividing it in each half, you got the right half is all the notes that lift, and the left half is all the notes that fall. And then all I did was look at it because I'm like, all right, there's got to be a pattern here that you can memorize this, and it was the word bead, B-E-A-D. Every note that's going to lift is basically, and it's also this simple. This will come up at the end of the lesson, so I'll just say it quick here. All the white keys, every note, every white key is going to bring you a lift except for F. And as you can see, F is on the left side of the circle of fifths. So what's on the right side? What are the leftover notes? It's bead and G. And if you start at the bottom of the circle, before you get to the tritone at the very bottom, that's where the B is. So it goes B, E, A, D, and then G, and then you're back to the C at the top. If you're visualizing the circle of fifths like I am, at the bottom, that's going to be the brightest uh, that is going to be the. I can't remember if that's going to be the five black key. Yes, it's got 5 changes. It's got the most changes, so it's going to be the strongest of whichever direction it's changing. Now that's on the right hand of the circle of fifths, so that's going to have the strongest change. The strength goes from bottom to top. G would have the weakest uplift from C, although it's going to have the most commonality because it shares the most notes. B shares the least, but it's still an uplifting key. But you wouldn't know that from the composer's code. Like which, because B shares what? It's going to share 2. Right, yeah. And it's down. So you think, oh, down from C. I'm moving down from C, so that would be a downgrade. But no, actually B lifts. And you say, well, how can that be? I'm moving down. How does it lift? Because the single tones that are changing in our scale, you're not making changes that are real far away. These are one note that you can change, a white key to a black key. So if you take the notes that you've changed and you've lifted them, you've chosen the note that's higher, it's going to be on the right side of the circle of fifths. That's going to sound uplifted. If you take some of your notes of your scale, take my C major white keys, and I drop some of the white keys down to black keys, that's going to sound like a diminished or a lowering. It's going to sound a little bit lower in mood ranking than the original key is C. So, that being said, I don't know what I was saying. I was off on a tangent and I've rambled a little bit. So, but I'm sure it made a point somewhere. Let's move on really quick here and see something cool now, because we want to get to the meat and potatoes, right? We got to know our piano keyboard here. Here it is with our 2 black keys and 3 black keys. Now, Exhibit 8. This is something very special we want to find out here. Also notice, basically, just a real quick recap here. I'm sure I said this. There's 3 2s, but then there's 2 of everything else. Everything is in 2s, okay? Now, we're going to go to here. This is where we were. Oh, we were here. And so, wow. I can't believe how bad I'm, my mind must be wandering. Well, you know what? It serves me right for not, doing. I whipped this together because I wanted to make a lesson because I haven't made a lesson for 8 years on my channel. Well, it's been, a couple weeks now. And so I whipped this together and I didn't put together a script. So either way, I was going for some point there. It escapes me. But look, all we got to do is know this. If we take a, oh, sorry. Oh, God. Everything was in 2s, 2 5s, 2 4s, 2 3s. But there's one, let me show you this. So we should see that there's everything is in 2 pairs of 2 here. So let's look at this row of notes here from just straight up and down the fretboard here, like this. Now, here you can see on our, we've got all the black keys listed. So if we had a scale where one part of that scale was using all of these notes, as you can see here, a scale will do. And that's the secret to what's coming up in a second here. You'll notice that we would overlap 3 notes here with 3 black keys. So our scale has 3 black keys. Here it would only have 2, 1. And so if we look, there's like here, this row here shares 1. Here's the second row that shares 1. Here is 4. And then here's 4, but they jumble around a bit. So it doesn't really tell you much of anything. But here's a secret. What if there was 1? So we see we got 2 of everything. You see this, that probably lines up with the 2 5s, the 2 4s, the 2 3s, and it does. But there's a deeper secret to this magic here, and that's this row right here. If you notice, take a look at any row of frets down the fretboard with the pentatonic scale on it. It's the E minor pentatonic, by the way. I don't know if I want to, because now that when I record a lesson a second time, I don't remember what I've actually talked about. Was it the first lesson or the second lesson? So just for, make sure everyone is up to speed. In case you didn't notice, all the black keys make up a pentatonic scale, so it would be E flat pentatonic to be the easiest way to say it. Yeah, you can call that F sharp major pentatonic, but anyways, everybody knows it is, E drop down a fret, E flat pentatonic, E flat minor pentatonic. Your E minor pentatonic, E flat minor pentatonic in this case. So anyway, sorry for rambling there. You got that row down here of all five notes. And so yeah. I'm gonna look back at this lesson and go, oh my god, I was rambling so bad. So the next thing here is, like I said, we've identified, our piano keyboard visualization here with the 2 black keys and the 3 black keys. You should know your scale, looks like that, and you could go up your fretboard in 1 string and do the 3 white keys anywhere, the 3 and the 4, the 3 and the 4 was going to make you a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, depending on where you started with the 3 notes. Okay, so that'll be helpful to know. So here we have this row of, I've highlighted it here because that's a very special place on your on your keyboard. On your fretboard here, you have, so we're at the 11th fret, and we have every black key on the keyboard right there. So that's really cool. The next step would be really cool if these lined up with the piano keyboard in some kind of visual way, so that you could be like, oh yeah, that's the this. But the trouble is, it turns into this. Looking at your keyboard from this direction, you have the 2. This is where the 2 black keys and the 3 black keys separation comes in handy. So you break your keyboard apart. You look at it from this way, you've got your black key. I was doing this at first. It's somewhat doable, but it was too cumbersome, and I found a better way. So just to be quick here, we've got the on this side, you've got the 2 outside are stacked in the same kind of way, but you're looking at it from this way, and then you got this, the middle one is in the weird place here, is it? It's a lot of 8 million bits of information to jumble around, and I don't like that. So here's something easier. Move over bacon, because there's something leaner. How about this? Your basic ancient jazz information. What's a great progression? A very common progression in jazz. 3-6-2-5-1. 3-6-2-5-1. Barry Harris. 3-6-2-5-1. Steve Miller. Oh, no, he's not a jazz guy. Anyways, sounds like one though, right? Steve Miller. Anyways, go take the money and run. Great song. 3-6-2-5-1. That is a really common, memorable progression, and so you just think from the top here, 3-6-2-5-1. Now you got to do a little mental juggling here, but it's pretty simple. If I go 1, I'm not dealing with a 1. That's a root. I'm dealing with black keys here. A 1 is a flat 7, and the 7s are always so closely related to the 1s. They're right next door. The 7 leads right into the 1s. There's always a strong relationship in my mind between the 7s and the 1s. So making that swap is really easy. So I just go, here's, this note. Well, it's going to be, 3-6. So there I am at 6 on this, second string down, 3-6. The next one down, 3-6-2. Flat 2. 3-6-2-5. Flat 5. Flat 7. And then a repeat at the top, the flat 3rd. So 3-6-2-5-1. The 3-6-2-5. Flat 7. Flat 3, flat 6, flat 2, flat 5, flat 7, flat 3, if you want to be. Would that be pedantic? I don't know. Anyways, so there it is. Now, so here's the kicker then. And so we identified there's that row of black keys and how to identify which ones they are. Now you just put your scale down on your fretboard and you see where do your notes overlap the 11th fret, and it's that easy. So here we picked a random scale. We've picked the example of the key of E. Now E shares E shares 2543. Yes, that makes perfect sense. It shares 3. This is where I screwed up the last lesson, by the way. This shares 3. As for our white key composer code, it shares 3 white keys. Well, that means it shares uh, 2543. It means it shares 4 black keys. So we should see the 4 black keys in purple here, where the gray scale overlaps. The gray scale is the key of E, Castle grayscale. The where it overlapped is the purple notes. That black was not played. That's, you can see it's the A flat or G sharp, A, B, and that is not played. Anyways, but so you can, I'm sure you know. So scale going black key, B flat 2, flat 6, flat 3rd, flat 6, 2. All right, so you kind of get the idea there. Probably wasn't in the camera, but nobody looks at that camera anyways. So what are the notes in there? There's the 3, 6, 2, 5 is what they are. So now you know what black keys they are, what the notes are. Now these intervals here though are for the key of E. Those intervals wouldn't make sense as per the key of E. Those are as referenced from, just because beginners will get confused on this stuff, those are referenced from our original key of C thinking. These are the intervals from the key of C. So in the key of E, that would be, you just have to figure that out. I know that's my 1s, that's my flat 7, that's a 1, 2, it's going to be a flat 3rd, there's my 4, 5, it's going to be a 6 there. Anyway, so you could understand all that. And I may have been, I don't know, if I was wrong there, if I just screwed all that up, don't worry about it. It's just, you'll make sense of it. But the overall suggestion was right. These are the intervals from the key of C, just in case you're like, hey, that's not if this is the key of E, that would be a flat 7, like, yeah, that is true. But to do what we're doing, to go to your DAW and be able to play all the right, just instantly know what black keys you're playing, or vice versa, see your keyboard playing something, you've identified the 3 black keys he's playing, and you go, oh, well, that's this, this, and this. And then maybe with the other notes he's playing, okay, that's the key of such and such. Or maybe you played something randomly on your keyboard on your DAW, and you're like, wow, this is really great. I love this melody. Yeah, I got to make a song out of this. But what is it? What key is this in? So, you make up the rest of the notes, you get the key worked out, and you know that there's, or I don't know, maybe you made something up on your guitar and you wanted to know, like, all right, well, I want to make that in, a keyboard part on my keys. You can just listen to all this stuff and you'll probably hear, like, okay, well, actually I wanted, this black key sounds better than this one. But if there's any question, maybe sometimes some of it can get a little bit closely related. So you don't know which exact note you like better. I mean, then it's just preference, really. What do you want your song to sound like? But so you can see this is a little bit ambiguous. You can, probably use this for some good reasoning. But is it going to be like the music theory bullet that makes everybody like, whoa, how do you know all that? No, nobody's gonna. And you can usually get around this other ways using your ears. So but it's just so interesting. It's just so like, who knew you could do that? Who knew that exact thing was right there? So now, but here's a kicker though. Here's where it gets really kind of cool. We want to know, without looking at the circle of fifths, although that's kind of easier. It is easier, I think. But which ones will rise and which ones will fall? Well, take a look here. This arrow indicates which ones are going to fall. Because it's actually this simple. We've got, this is a white key. if you look at the circle of fifths, you've got like bead G on the right for the uplift keys, and you also have bead, but it's B flat, E flat, D flat, A flat, whatever, and F for the downgrade, falling down keys. But what that means is, with the inclusion of the white key of F, all those other notes, the bead on the left side of the circle of fifths, are all black keys. So in theory, any key that you're going to use, any key that starts on a black key is going to fall. Plus F. F for fall. Hey, what? And I even just thought of that. So anyways, yeah, so fall with F and bead. But your standard bead, B-E-A-D, of all the white keys is going to uplift. So if you're in any key, you don't even have to, you can kind of still think of white key, black key. Even though you're no longer in the key of C, you can kind of think, if this was my scale, let's start on E flat. That's going to be an uplift. That's going to be an uplift. That's going to be an uplift. There is the fourth. That's where the F would be in my, if this was the key of C, that's going to be a down, that's going to be a fall down. This is going to be an up, up, and back to the root. Now, so where are all the keys that fall? So this is all the in-between notes are going to fall. So half step up is going to fall. But if we go the other way, a half step down is not going to fall. You can see that here. A half step down, it's actually going to rise because it's a B, or it's the it's not a black key from your key, whatever key you're in. Always has the T before the do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So you would have the T there as a white key. Or in the key of C, it would be B, B-E-A-D. It's on the right side of the key of G. And that's going to be an uplift, right? All right, so that's basically what I wanted to show you today. As a repeat of the other screen there. So yeah, so you can see it all right here. As a matter of fact, we'll just, I was looking at this anyways. Hopefully you were too. These up and down arrows here. I don't know if that was, hopefully it wasn't off the screen when I was talking about it, but here it is right here. So, you can see it back again with the white key code. If we only share 2 white keys, it's down. Here we're sharing 4, it's down. Let's look at the other 4. That's an uplift. Let's look at how this works. This is kind of neat too with this up, down, up, down. So what makes this easy for a guitarist is it's every other note. It's either up, it's a lift and fall, lift and fall, lift and fall, and that it's what was I gonna say? This too is down on the other side of the root because I didn't type it there. So, but we can find it here. That's up. The opposites of the groups of 2, they're all in opposites. So this 5 is down. This 5 goes up. This 4 goes down. That 4 goes up. So you can have, now you can even know, I want a tonality that shares 4 notes, and my idea is uplifting. The spirits are soaring in our idea of our song. So you're going to probably want to experiment with the key that has an uplift with the 4 notes rather than the falling down with the other 4 notes. So it could be actually very, very helpful for composing ideas. I hope I gave you something awesome to work with. I'll cut the lesson down here just to get that time stamp down. People don't like long lessons. They don't even want to click on them if they're long. And like, subscribe, and leave a comment, because if you do all them little things, the notification bell thing, the algorithm helps the channel grow. Can you help us grow? I mean, that would be the freest, easiest thing you could do out there if you found any value to this lesson. Do that so that the channel can grow, because it really has never grown. If you look at this channel, it's going on almost 10 years old or more, and I'm teetering along at the bottom of the barrel as far as viewers go. So, think about it. And if you want to upgrade, if you like thought something about one of my lessons knocked it out of the park, well, you can always click on that link below and go, dude, here's $1. Go buy half of a coffee. Maybe just get a sugar packet or something. And in the link, the buy me a coffee link thing, someday there'll be a Patreon. Bug me about a Patreon, because I don't think I'm ever going to get off my ass and do it. And then there may be another link for something down there. Oh yeah, the merchandise. Yeah. Check out t-shirts and stuff, because I got merchandise that I made. All right, some of it's Mind's Eye related and some of it's just random. So check it all out. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next round of Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Journey to the Center of Your Fretboard. Thank you.